It's worth looking at what Mr. Putin has been doing. He's been 23 years in power. He came to power in January 2000. So Putin sums up everything about Russian politics at the moment. Putin is at the apex of that pyramid. And what he has developed is a form of politics which is obsessed with manipulation, with preying on people's vulnerabilities. In fact, that's exactly how he went into Ukraine, urged by his two buddies, Viktor Medvedchuk and Yuri Kovalchuk, who seemed to think that President Zelensky would be an easy target him, target his family, put pressure on them, and Kyiv will collapse and Putin can walk in, take over the country and look spectacular. An application on Zelensky because he was an actor, because there was nothing in his background to suggest that he would rise to the occasion. And in the same way that Putin is at the apex of a pyramid in Russia, so Zelensky is at the apex of a pyramid in Ukraine. But that pyramid in Ukraine is paralleled. There are many pyramids in Ukraine. Ukraine, the power is bubbling to the surface all over the place. So taking out Zelensky now would not topple the country in any way. And that, I think, is something Putin has not come to terms with, because taking out Putin, the country would be distraught. The country wouldn't know what it was going to do. And that is part of the problem. What happens after Putin? I think a post-Putin Kremlin at this particular moment is probably more terrifying than having Putin in place. Anyway, everything in Putin's Russia is funneled through that one person, through Putin. And everything Putin does has consequences. It's consequential. His health, his image, his weaknesses, the size of his table, the circle that he inhabits, that circle is shrinking. The distance between Putin and his advisors is shrinking, and the handful of decision makers is shrinking, and Putin doesn't expand that circle at all. All he does is move people around like little chess pieces. People don't do what he wants, he moves them around. Or they take a short journey out of a window if they're not particularly significant or close. Now, if we look at the recent characters around the world, a pattern emerges. Trump had a short attention span. Biden is wobbly. Putin intimidates his advisors. Britain's leadership is temporary. Liz Truss, anyway, only reads summaries. A pattern is there, that we have entered an age when power doesn't listen to advice, or at least doesn't bother reading it when it's there. And it allows for that vacuum. There is a vacuum. It allows for that vacuum to be filled. Where anybody does the work, where anybody puts in the hours, they will have an advantage. And so the people around Putin, the minor characters like Prigozhin, Kadyrov, these people have an advantage because they put in the work. They do the time. Kadyrov has now said that he plans to start his own military unit, his own private mercenary army, to create a private army, to rival that of the Wagner Brigade. I mean, he saw how successful was the Wagner Brigade while it had power, and how it budded up to Putin. Now, he proposes to do the same thing in year 2 of the Ukraine expedition. Meanwhile, Putin is talking increasingly like a sort of diminished, like a sort of mini Hitler. He's talking in his own way about Lebensraum, about expanding, about Russia expanding again, the revival of Hitler's ideals. Because there is nowhere else to go. The original aims of the Ukraine expedition have failed. The original goal was to, quote, demilitarize and denazify, to make Ukraine a neutral barrier between Russia and NATO. And that didn't work because Mr. Zelensky did not fold. So Putin rethought. He's got his distorted history as well. The idea Ukrainians and Russians, we are one people, and so on. But he then changes. He then changes to the Ukraine war is about the liberation of the Donbass, which culminates in the annexation of those 4 regions, before Russia has even got control over those 4 regions. And then there's a further change. Now the language is about a crusade, first against Satanism, then a crusade of orthodoxy against corrupt Christianity, and finally a crusade against LGBTQ plus peoples. And all of this is supposed to eclipse or draw attention away from the serious losses that Russia has incurred. The bombing, the sinking of the Moskva, the bombing of the bridge, the 60,000 plus dead, the mistake with somebody's mobile phone that led to the bombing in Makiivka over Christmas. It's one mistake after another. And Putin's answer to this is simply to throw more people into the mix, but to keep his circle as small as possible. His ambition is to survive. His ambition, I don't think he really bothers one way or another what happens to Ukraine. So he needs an exit route. And if we're not talking to Putin, we're not providing Putin with any ideas. I think he's basically given up having ideas. We need to provide them. That is our job, and that job should be taking place as earnestly as we equally support President Zelensky's determination to defend his country and to take back the land that has been seized illegally by Russia, by the Kremlin.